Hey, it's Patricia Murphy. It's Friday, Casual Friday. This is Seattle Now. This week, the Mariners' CEO said awful things about his players and was forced to resign. And a Seattle woman discovered a brick of cocaine in her secondhand crochet kit. Seattle Times reporter Melissa Hellman and the Oatmeal's Matt Inman are here to work it all out. But first, let's get you caught up. COVID cases are down, so Governor Inslee has decided to freeze all 8 regions of the state in Phase 2. That means under the current reopening plan, counties won't slide backward into tighter restrictions. But he's still concerned about the 2 COVID variants found in the state. Inslee says he'll use the pause to evaluate how counties can move to Phase 3, though he won't say when. Costco is raising its minimum wage to $16 an hour. That makes it higher than the $15 an hour of its competitors, Amazon and Target. The increase comes as Congress and the Biden administration are considering raising the federal minimum wage. The Costco pay hike takes effect next week. And the Seattle Police Department has responded to a state Supreme Court ruling about simple drug possession. The court ruled yesterday that Washington's strict statute is unconstitutional, in part because people have been arrested when they didn't even know they were in possession of a banned substance. The Seattle Police Department says they'll no longer make arrests or detain people based on the law. It's Friday again. And I don't know about you, but I feel a little lighter since Seattle is no longer an anarchist jurisdiction. Nothing like a fresh start, people. Melissa Hellman is here. She covers South King County for the Seattle Times. Melissa, 20 years ago this week, the Nisqually quake rocked the region. I was in a parking garage in Pioneer Square. Where were you?
I think I was probably in my homeroom in 10th grade in Pennsylvania.
Oh, so you didn't even have the quake. You were across the country.
Yeah, I had no idea about it at all.
Wow. Matt Inman is also with us. You know him as the founder of the Oatmeal and maker of the Exploding Kittens card game. Matt, were you around for the quake?
I was working in downtown Seattle at a startup at the time, trying to put internet on commercial airlines. And I was 40 stories up in the Key Tower, which is that tower across from the Columbia Tower. And what was absolutely terrifying was the quake lasted maybe like a little less than a minute. I can't remember.
40 seconds.
40 seconds. But the tower kept swaying left and right for minutes. So it was like our earthquake went on forever. The other thing that I realized, because this was the first time I'd ever been in a real panic with other people, was when crisis happens, people scream, and that's almost worse. Like, no one was calmly walking between doorways and getting under tables. Everyone just started screaming, and so I was screaming, and it was chaos. And then our CEO, he didn't get under a doorway, he didn't get under a desk. He ran to the window and wanted to look out, and so he's looking out at the building across from us, and something due to the pressure of the building waving, the glass was exploding out. He was like, oh, look, it's blowing up. So our fearless leader was standing next to the exploding glass, like just staring out. It was, like I said, it was scary. And I learned that in a crisis, just scream and run around. That's all you're going to do.
Yeah, it was bizarre. I was in a parking garage and the light fixtures were hitting the ceiling. They were swinging. And I'm from the East Coast, never had a earthquake experience before. I kept thinking that until I saw the light fixtures swinging, that there was a truck driving over a bridge and rattling the building. That's what I thought was happening. And I was completely unprepared. I actually got in my car and drove down the spiral during the quake. I think the guy at the little pay terminal looked at me like I was bananas. He's like, what are you doing here? But for years, I had a receipt stamped with the time of the earthquake on it sitting on my desk. Anyway. Big news from the Mariners this week. Of course, not the kind they wanted. It all started with a video of the team's CEO trash-talking players, all kinds of cringy stuff. He apologized, of course. Then he resigned. Melissa, this was a huge mess for the team, but maybe a case of the best outcome for everyone, most importantly, the players.
Yeah, I don't know very much about baseball at all, but yeah, it seems like it's a big deal for them. At least just reading the stories about it, it seems like the person who ended up making Kevin lose his job seemed happy about it, even though he's a lifelong Mariner fan.
Yeah, Matt, how about that super fan who discovered the video? Eric Hess, the Seattle Times talked to him, diehard Mariners fan since birth, just sitting around, killing a little time, searching for Mariners stuff, and finds the video that takes out the CEO.
I read about how he found this YouTube video that had 0 views on it.
Yeah.
And what I was astonished by was that he found it, but also that there are videos with 0 views of a CEO of a sports team, like, saying stuff. Like, I just always assume if you're an elected official or if you're any sort of leader, everything you say is being TikToked and streamed and Twitched 1,000 times over. So this guy, I'm just impressed that he found this horrible little gem buried on YouTube.
And, of course, then he tweeted about it, and everything snowballed from there. Pretty contagious out there right now, with 2 more COVID variants kicking around. And while we debate paying people for the risk of going to work in grocery stores, some sororities and fraternities at the UW had snow parties last weekend. There was an editorial this week in the UW paper calling for those students to be disciplined. As soon as I read this editorial, this is what I thought. I would have been this editorial writer. I would have been this crabby person in college who would have stood at the end of Greek row and said, "All you people, what are you doing?" This would have been me. I was always writing letters, complaining. Matt, which side of this would you have been on?
I'm with the author. They're being selfish. They're thinking of themselves like, I'm fine, I'm young, even if I get COVID. They're not thinking about all the other people that they're transmitting it to. I agreed with the author. This was terrible. They need to go inside.
Melissa?
Yeah, it's definitely very self-centered. I would like to think that I would not have been one of those people, and I was also not into the Greek life when I was in college, but at the same time, I did party. So I don't know that I would have been as cautious as I am now. So, I mean, it's really hard to try to get people whose, honestly, their prefrontal cortex hasn't been fully developed to get them to follow rules like this, especially if they don't see the impact on themselves. Yeah, but I think that there definitely needs to be some sort of education and outreach that happens in a way that's palatable to college students so that they can really understand the long-term impacts and how it is affecting the community at large.
The author of that editorial was calling for some pretty strict sanctions against the Greek system, and I find the power dynamic here really interesting. I mean, who really does hold the power? Is it the students on Greek row whose parents perhaps contribute to the university, or is it the university who has to bear the responsibility of keeping people safe? I don't know. I think it's interesting to see where this is going.
Yeah, I think it's the universities. I think that it's their call to assert this disciplinary action after they get out of their parents' house. There's not much that their parents can do about it. But then I also question just how effective these measures are to try to get them to stop. I think that you can tell them as many times as you want they shouldn't be doing it, but they'll still find a way.
Well, 3 times, really, right? It's the 3rd time they've blown up on Greek row with parties, and there were outbreaks over the summer, you know.
We should let them party, but on Mars, you know? They like playing in cold weather. It's like negative 100 degrees Fahrenheit there at night. They can go crazy, assuming they survive EDL, entry, descent, and landing, without exploding. That's the compromise.
Oh my gosh. All right, one more story before we go. We're all looking for things to get us through this time, and who doesn't love a thrifted treasure? Which explains why a Seattle woman scooped up a sweet animal hat crochet kit from a Greenwood secondhand store. Never mind her crafty spirit, though. When she opened it up at home, she found a brick of cocaine inside. Melissa, yikes.
Yeah, I guess for some people it might be Yahtzee, but yeah, that's pretty wild. I honestly didn't even know that thrift stores were open right now, so it sounds like it's still being investigated, so we don't even know how that happened, but it's also funny for the drug dealer, whoever it was that planted that all of a sudden they looked around and they were like, oh, I'm missing my yarn and my brick of coke.
There could be a very dark backstory to all this. We definitely have to mention that somebody is definitely missing this kilo of cocaine, and confirmed by SPD, It is a kilo. It was wrapped in rubber packaging, stamped with 100% on the outside. Matt, that's a lot of cocaine.
I just want to know, because I feel like this was glossed over, did the dog or the cat end up getting a hat knitted for them after all?
If she had done the coke, the entire neighborhood would have been outfitted, Matt. Yarn barn would have been empty.
I'm just excited that thrift stores are exciting again. I feel like they had a moment with Macklemore, and then it dipped, and now we're right back to it's a thrill ride to buy stuff from the thrift store.
Oh, man, we're going to leave it there. That's our show for this week. Thanks again to my guests, Matt Inman, maker of the oatmeal and exploding kittens. Check out his new game, Kitty Letter. It's out now. That's letter, not litter. That game's not as much fun. And Melissa Hellman, reporter at the Seattle Times, covering South King County. Thanks, you too.
Thanks for having us, Patricia.
Thank you.
Seattle Now is produced by Clare McGrane, Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, and Jason Pagano. Matt Jorgensen does our music. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you Monday.